don't fight for the year. No, don't nobody fight. We're going to fight. He's not doing that here. We don't know what he's doing. He's trying to fight Charlo and Terrence Crawford and then what? Tank Davis. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't mad at him, but like, he had plenty of opportunity to fight me, and he had opportunity to fight David already. So at the end of the day, I don't think he really wants that challenge. Canelo guideline of him saying whatever we can, you know, first I'm a hobble and now I'm 50-50 against David. Now you're not fighting Mexicans because David was the champion and now he's not the champion anymore. Now you want it. So it's just like, yeah, bro. I mean, it speaks for itself.
See that Crawford Canelo can make a fight in the future?
Canelo, bro. Canelo. Like, that's it. Like, Canelo.
Thank you, man.
Best of luck to Terrence Crawford if he doesn't get it, but Canelo.
I think it was Albert Einstein who defined insanity as doing the same thing in repetition, expecting a different result. I feel like that applies to Demetrius Andrade, who's been carrying on like this about Canelo Alvarez for years, at 154, at 160, at 168. What is he expecting to happen?
I gotta take the gloves off for this one because I really am fucking tired of hearing this guy. I am.
Do you think that if Canelo Alvarez wasn't worth what he's worth, drawing the kind of paydays that he does, do you think that Demetrius would want to fight him? What do you think is the real reason that Demetrius Andrade has been talking about Canelo Alvarez all these years, pursuing him? Do you think it's because he thinks he can beat him? Do you think that's what it is? Do you think that it's because he really wants to prove that he's the better fighter, or is it because of what he stands to make, because of what he stands to get paid? Because there are a lot of fighters, there have been a lot of fighters in between 154 and 160, even here at 168, that he could have fought and should have fought, but he didn't.
Don't expect Demetrius to regale you with stories of all the fights that he's pulled out of from 154 to 160 to 168. He's not going to do that. What do you think the real reason is that he keeps talking about Canelo?
Let me rephrase that. Let's say Canelo Alvarez has the exact same resume that he has,
right?
But he's not worth the same money. He's just as formidable a fighter as he was at 154, at 160, and at 168, but you don't get a career-high purse for fighting him.
Oh.
You don't make a massive payday. In that situation, do you think Demetrius would have spent all these years riding his coattails? No, he wouldn't have. Because he doesn't actually want to prove he's a better fighter than Canelo. He just wants to show up for a check. The same as Jermell Charlo just did. That's what it is.
Why do you think he didn't fight Yanni Beck when he was ordered to fight him? Why do you think he pulled out on Zach Parker after telling the WBO, I'm not fighting Yanni Beck because I'm going to move up and fight Zach? Why do you think he didn't fight Zach? Because of the money.
And all those years ago at 154, why do you think he pulled out on Jermell Charlo? It seems to me that Demetrius Andrade doesn't want to fight any formidable fighters unless he gets an arm and a leg to do it, because he's pulled out of quite a few fights for the exact same reason. The only reason that he wants to fight Canelo, it's not because he thinks he can beat him or he wants to prove that he's better. He wants to get paid to show up, the same as Jermell.
Likely to put on the same piss-poor display, the same as Jermell.
Canelo fought the majority of the who's who fighters at 154. Erislandy Lara in his prime, unbeaten. Austin Trout, Liam Smith, when he had the WBO title at middleweight, he literally fought the number one middleweight in the world 2 times while he was the number one middleweight in the world. And the man who gave him a hard fight and a hard night in Daniel Jacobs, IBF champion at the time. Who did Demetrius fight at that weight?
Canelo fought then champion Miguel Cotto, then champion Gennady Golovkin, then champion Daniel Jacobs. Who did Demetrius fight at that weight?
And now he's accusing Canelo of avoiding the good fighters at super middleweight. He literally fought every single champion there was at that weight. Unbeaten Caleb Plant, unbeaten Billy Joe Saunders, unbeaten Callum Smith. Who has Demetrius fought at that weight? Damon Nicholson?
Oh, I get it. You think you're hot shit because you're fighting David Benavidez.
Well, isn't it about time you fought somebody good? You're literally older than Canelo. You're in your mid-30s, having campaigned at 3 weights, and you don't have a single signature fight a single memorable fight to show for it. It's about time you fought somebody who could fight back.
And you're only doing it because you're out of options. If you weren't fighting David Benavidez, who would you fight? More guys like Desmond Nicholson? More guys like Luke Keeler, Jason Quigley?
The truth is that you have legacy fighters and you have prize fighters. And Demetrius Andrade, he's not about legacy, he's just about the prizes, which is why he has amassed so few of them over the years, not understanding that legacy and finance go hand in hand in the sport of boxing. And when you try to take shortcuts to the finance,
it backfires.
for Demetrius's argument to make sense, you would have to ignore that Canelo Alvarez fought a prime Erislandy Lara, an unbeaten Austin Trout, an unbeaten Liam Smith, WBC champion Miguel Cotto, #1 middleweight in the world, Gennady Golovkin 2 times, Daniel Jacobs, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant, Sergey Kovalev.
And the whole time he's doing this, what the fuck are you doing? Who the fuck were you fighting? You're older than him, and you're an Olympian.
You talk about the American boxing scene's fall from grace, how this isn't your father's era of boxing, and how American boxing just isn't what it used to be. Fighters like Demetrius Andrade who piss away inordinate amounts of time. That's why.
Drunk on his driveway, begging Chris Eubank Jr. to give him a fight when he was under orders to satisfy Yanni Bek Alimkhanalai as his mandatory. That happened.
And now you think that because you and David are about to have a fight, a big fucking fight, it's the first guy with a pulse that you've fought in your entire career. And it's not for lack of opportunity, it's for lack of trying. It's about fucking time.
Why don't you just take care of business with David before you worry about Canelo? If Canelo is taking it easy, he's earned that much. You haven't beat anyone worth talking about.
I think he knocks him out. Benavidez is a monster. He throws. Benavidez throws literally an average of above 50 to 55 punches around. Canelo, Charlo, in the first round, they threw one punch combined. I'm not talking to you as, oh, I hate Canelo, oh, I hate Benavidez. No, I'm talking about a boxing expert.
This is why I want Canelo Alvarez to face the winner of Benavidez versus Andrade post-haste, especially if the winner is David Benavidez, because I'm tired of hearing about how this very basic fighter is supposed to be some kind of a monster. You know, Oscar De La Hoya raises the point that David Benavidez throws more punches per round than Canelo Alvarez does, but Sean Porter throws more punches per round than Terence Crawford, who won the fight. Terence Crawford. Errol Spence Jr. throws more punches per round than Terence Crawford, but once again, who won the fight? That's what accurate counterpunching can do. It can cut an otherwise busy fighter's work rate in half, and in some instances, down to less than half. And that just so happens to be Canelo's speciality. He's a very good counterpuncher, and for me and my money, a stronger puncher than David Benavidez. Don't let his size and his volume fool you.
How much one-hitter-quitter power does he really have? How much is really on the punches when the guy is killing himself? He's emaciating himself to make the weight, and it's not going to get easier over time.
And what glaring flaws he has. Mistakes that he's able to consistently get away with because he's always fighting a certain caliber of fighter, of a certain tier, the kind of fighters that can't capitalize on his mistakes, and the audience is none the wiser. They don't even see it. How much this guy squares up mid-range to inside. You don't want to do that. You don't want to give your opponent both shoulders, because if he gets in with a counter, you're on your back pocket. And it's happened to David Benavidez before. While squaring up, he still does it.
But because he's always fighting guys that are tailor-made for him, he gets away with it. With Canelo, I don't think he would. In fact, I think we could see a knockdown similar to the one we saw in the Mendoza versus Fundora fight.
For the same reason, be wary of any statuesque fighter, any tall, long, and limber fighter that favors boxing mid-range to inside instead of using their height and using their length, because oftentimes that's a cop-out. It's a cop-out for the range control that you don't have. So what you choose to do is smother the other guy. And that's the kind of thing that works Up until it doesn't. Sebastian Fundora, he found out the hard way, as did Jared Hurd before him.
It's not that a tall, statuesque fighter shouldn't be able to handle himself mid-range to inside. Of course they should, but when that's what you always do.
You're selling out. That's what you're doing. You favor banging in the phone booth in spite of your height and your length because you can't control the guy mid-range to outside. So you cop out and throw punches in bunches mid-range to inside, giving up your height, giving up what is supposed to be an advantage, but you don't really know how to use it.
Boxing mid-range to inside favors the shorter, stumpier fighter with the lower center of gravity because he doesn't have to track you down. He doesn't have to find you, and that could prove difficult if you've got the footwork for it. David doesn't. David would end up doing half the work for Canelo Alvarez by coming forward.
And if the feeling is that he's going to come forward, step into his punches, and overwhelm Canelo with volume, he didn't overwhelm Caleb with volume, and Caleb was exhausted. Caleb, who's got poor cardio and doesn't take the best punch. So if you couldn't seal the deal with Caleb, if you couldn't stop him, how are you going to stop a better fighter with a better chin who's got more power, who can throw some stuff at you that might hurt you? Canelo Alvarez's counter-punching.
Body punching.
The only real advantage I see that David might have over Canelo Alvarez is he does seem to have a good engine. But how is that engine going to hold up once the counters start to land and the punches start to set in? The damage. How is that engine going to hold up? You say that he's bigger and he's taller, though it doesn't matter. He gives up his height and gives up his length, remember? He likes to bang in the booth, so him being taller don't matter.
You say that Canelo Alvarez ain't gonna knock out David because he couldn't knock out a smaller man in Jermell Charlo. But need I remind you that Jermell Charlo spent the whole fight on his bike, moving lateral, staying out of the pocket. That's the opposite of what David Benavidez does. Jermell went in there trying to survive.
And if what you're saying is that David's gonna go in there trying to rough Canelo Alvarez up, mid-range to inside, shoulder square, letting his hands go with those wide sweeping hooks that can be countered.
I don't see what David Benavidez does better than Canelo Alvarez. I don't even think he's a stronger puncher, even though he's a bigger man.
You know, forget these fans versus those fans. The polarization of Canelo or the polarization of David Benavidez. Breaking down the fight, I simply don't see what David Benavidez has that Canelo hasn't seen before. He survived more educated pressure and more educated power from a more educated delivery system in Gennady Golovkin, who I happen to think was a stronger puncher then than David is now. And if Canelo weathered that, I think he can weather a more basic fighter in David. So I am hoping and holding out hope that if David wins later on this month, we see him in the ring with Canelo Cinco de Mayo of the following year. Let's just have it!
And may the best man win. I think that man is going to be Canelo.
I think the next souped-up PBC guy to get exposed could be David. It very well could be. Finally, some skepticism from Alexander Usyk, who is not fully convinced the Fury fight will happen. Only when I hear the sound of a bell. Many people share in that sentiment, given how Tyson Fury just looked against a novice who never even boxed before. He's gonna fight a lifer, like Alexander Usyk. I'm not 100% sure. I will be sure when I'm in the ring. Usyk said to the AP, I will stand in one corner, Tyson Fury will stand in the opposite corner, between us, a referee in a white shirt, and only when I hear the sound of a bell, that's when I'll understand that yes, the game is on. I want this to work out. I want this fight to happen. The fact that it is postponed is no problem to me. I'm satisfied. I don't care about material things. I care for the path I follow. During the past few months, Fury has unloaded an arsenal of verbal jabs in Usyk's direction, but the Ukrainian fighter has not taken any of the statements personally.
The trash talk seemed different to me when it came to Usyk. It sounded different than what you heard from Fury in reference to Klitschko, what you heard from Fury in reference to Wilder or Anthony. With Usyk, he seemed genuinely annoyed.
He trash-talked all of them. With Klitschko, he was able to use his complacency against him and get inside his mind. With Deontay Wilder, who fancied himself a bully, Tyson Fury's trash talk and how he approached him, he was able to stand up to him in a way that none of his opponents had before. With Anthony Joshua, he played on his shortcomings, the fact that he had lost to Andy Ruiz before.
His very PC, PG demeanor advertiser friendly.
He tried to get under his skin with all of that stuff. Tried to get under all of their skin. With Usyk, his approach was a lot more crude, a lot more simple. Outright insulting his appearance and how he's irrelevant and all these things. They had no effect on Alexander Usyk. Usyk, who said, "I heard so many insults about myself that at some point I started flipping them over and making them my achievements. I love this incredible person as a human being. I feel no hostility towards him. I simply love people, including Tyson Fury."
If you want my opinion, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, perhaps the reason that Tyson Fury's trash talk seemed a little bit different with Usyk than some other guys is because Usyk was a burden that he didn't want.
He found an alternative with Francis Ngannou, what was supposed to be a safer alternative to a big bag, and that just ended up blowing up in his face. He embarrassed himself, he embarrassed his family name, the sport of boxing, and the pay-per-view. The fucking pay-per-view bombed. It was supposed to be this mega event, but worldwide, all it sold was 400,000 pay-per-view buys for what the Saudis spent to get these guys in the ring and get all that boxing royalty over there. They might as well not have done it.
And now, he still has Usyk in front of him. He's still there.
Some die-hard Tyson Fury fans are saying that, Tyson Fury, he looked pretty bad in the Otto Wallin fight, but he was able to turn it all around in the Wilder rematch. So who's to say that won't happen here? Well, this is not Deontay Wilder. This is not a limited one-handed fighter, a one-trick pony with two left feet, no coordination, no cardio, and just a big right hand. This is Alexander Usyk.
Usyk doesn't have Deontay Wilder's inflated ego that led Wilder to overlook Tyson Fury. He's not complacent like Vlad was when he fought Tyson Fury. Psychologically,
Save the mind games, because it's not going to work on him. He's the consummate professional that you're not.
he is.
He's not off in some bathroom treating his nose and ballooning in weight and slamming down beers, treating his body like a sack of shit. He's not you.
You just went in there with a guy who never even boxed before and got sat on your back pocket in front of everybody. What do you think that's doing to Tyson Fury's psyche?
You think he's in a good headspace right now? It's for that reason that it actually is hard to imagine that the fight will materialize, that the fight will take place.
I see why he's skeptical.